In the early 16th century, the Alps were more than just a mountain range. They were a dividing line that fueled deep-seated tensions and rivalries. The conflicts between the peoples living on either side of these towering peaks were far more intense and ancient than the rivalry between Spain and Portugal. This tension had roots dating back to the 5th century, when a group of Central Europeans, proud descendants of Alaric, the leader who famously sacked Rome, had a complex relationship with the papacy. They had both reverence and deep hostility toward the Church, a sentiment that simmered for centuries. One of the most bitter memories was the humiliation of their leader, Emperor Henry IV, by Pope Gregory VII. In 1077, Henry was forced to kneel in the snow for 3 days at Canossa, a small castle in Italy, to beg for the Pope's forgiveness. This event left a lasting scar on the collective psyche of the German people, who, despite being divided into some 300 independent principalities, shared a common language, culture, and a growing sense of national identity. By the late 15th and early 16th centuries, this sense of identity was becoming more pronounced. German pilgrims returning from the Jubilee of 1500 in Rome brought back shocking stories of Vatican excesses and corruption. They spoke of orgies, poisonings, and pagan rituals within the Church's highest circles. These tales, while sensational, were just the tip of the iceberg. The real issue was the Church's overreach and the financial burden it imposed on the German people. The Church's influence was so vast that no sovereign was considered legitimate without papal confirmation. The Pope had the power to depose any ruler, and clerics were immune to civil law. This meant that priests could commit crimes like rape and murder without facing legal consequences. Conflicts between civil and ecclesiastical courts were often resolved in favor of the Church, further stoking the resentment of the German people. Maximilian I, the Holy Roman Emperor, nearly broke ties with the Vatican. In 1508, he was prevented from attending his own coronation in Rome due to hostilities with the Venetians. The schismatic Council of Pisa even offered him the papacy, but he declined. However, he later considered separating the German Church from Rome, though he ultimately decided against it, lacking the support of the German princes. Nonetheless, he tasked Jacob Wimpfeling, a humanist, with compiling a list of Germany's grievances against the papacy. The top complaint was the Vatican's relentless exploitation of German resources. Maximilian estimated that the papacy extracted 100 times more revenue from Germany than he did himself, a figure that, while exaggerated, reflected the widespread feeling that the Church was draining the country's wealth. Businessmen, who were becoming the driving force in German society, resented competing with monastic industries that were exempt from taxes. The frustration was palpable, and a letter from the Chancellor of the Archbishop of Mainz to an Italian cardinal captured the growing discontent. Taxes are collected harshly, and no delay is granted. War tithes are imposed without consulting the German prelates. Pastors and even some prelates shared the same grievances. Archbishop Berthold von Henneberg wrote, "The Italians should reward the Germans for their services, not drain the sacerdotal body with frequent extortions of gold." Despite these complaints, the Church ignored them, further exacerbating the tension. The relationship between the German people and the Church hierarchy deteriorated rapidly. When Karl von Miltitz, a papal envoy, visited Altenburg to meet with Martin Luther, he was surprised to find that much of Germany was critical of the Vatican. The anti-papal sentiment was so strong in Saxony that Miltitz avoided questions, denied holding the pontiff's commission, and even adopted a false identity. The situation was dire. A Catholic historian noted, "A revolutionary spirit of hatred for the Church and the clergy had taken hold of the masses in various parts of Germany. The cry 'death to the priests,' which had long been whispered in secret, was now the watchword of the day." Although the Pope remained unaware of the depth of this discontent, the Curia knew about it. To avoid an uprising, they decided to exempt Germany from the Inquisition. In 1516, a year before Luther posted his 95 Theses, one of the most capable men in the papal court warned of an impending revolt in the heart of Europe. His name was Girolamo Alindro, also known by his Latinized name, Hieronymus Alinder. At 40, Alindro was a Venetian with a commanding intellect. He was a humanist, a future cardinal, and a celebrated academic, having served as rector of the University of Paris and a colleague of Erasmus. Alejandro was fluent in all classical languages, and was a respected lecturer in Venice and Orleans. But he was also a man of action, and he would soon become Martin Luther's first formidable Catholic opponent. Alejandro had anticipated the coming mutiny during an official visit to Austria. He reported to Pope Leo that he had frequently heard men express their desire for a leader brave enough to stand against Rome. When the papacy issued the bull Exsurge Domine, a document denouncing Luther's heresies, Alejandro and Johann Eck, a theologian who had previously debated Luther, were chosen to deliver it to Germany. This was considered a great honor, and Eck, recalling his victory over Luther in Leipzig the previous year, set out with enthusiasm. The tension between the German people and the Church was reaching a boiling point. The stage was set for a conflict that would reshape the religious and political landscape of Europe. Martin Luther, a monk and a professor, was about to challenge the authority of the Church, and his actions would ignite a revolution that would change the course of history.